Do tell someone. Inner Turmoils Surrounding Sexually Abused Victims. Written by Wyvania Houston. Narrated by Amanda Fichter. Forward. Sexual abuse has been occurring for many years. No one is immune to it. Each incident has a devastating effect, leaving behind a wide variety of emotions. Fear, shame, and anger are a few of the more common examples. It reduces self-esteem in such a way that even the most confident person can't escape its horrors. It can also cause confusion, depression, suicidal tendencies, insanity, and emotional turmoil that can last for many years. Many victims, when left untreated, become victims many times all over again. Some turn to prostitution, gigolos, mental institutions, residents of penal institutions, residents to drug and alcohol abuse centers, etc. These are the ones you hear about most often, and wonder why they chose to lead these types of lifestyles. These victims have these problems without consciously knowing it stems from their unfortunate past of having been sexually abused. Other victims that you don't hear or know so much about go on to become dysfunctional, possible abusive parents who perpetuate the same kind of behavior by allowing their own children to be victimized, or victimizing their children in the same manner. One way to deal with this problem is prevention. You can't ever start too early teaching your children to recognize potential harm. Teach them about good touches. It may take a while for the child to gain the courage to reveal when a bad touch has occurred, and when they do, intervention needs to take place immediately. There are many people in a trusted position to whom your child can fall victim, some of whom are the father, stepfather, uncle, clergy, brother, mother, stepmother, grandfather, other distant relatives, friends of parents, their own friends, teachers, babysitters, dates, and neighbors, just to name a few. There are others that are strangers, but more often the victim knows and trusts their assailant, so be aware. The best way to deal with this type of crime is to seek professional and legal help. In this manner, the victim will be able to identify the problem and work on it before they get out of control. Teach your child self-confidence and foster it regularly. Help them develop and maintain a healthy, strong self-esteem. If they fall victim to such tragedy in their life, help them to restore that self-esteem. Loretta Leach, RN. Poems. Cruel. I left home very young because things just weren't right. Instances of him in my bed when you were asleep at night. I did tell, but, "Oh no," you said. "That I can't believe. My husband isn't capable of such. From here, you must leave." So out I went into the world, not knowing what was for me to do at such an early age, but at least I was free. Little did I know that there were others just as cruel, who'd take advantage of me too and make me out their fool. More hurt, pain, and more unhappiness I came to endure with this little heart of mine that once was free and pure. Things were so bad I did not know which way to turn or go, or even if there was a reason for my existing so. Then one day I stumbled into the greatest building on earth and discovered, after all, love in the universe. As I listened, I realized that God is very kind. He has truly given me back my peace of mind. Sexual abuses. Mom knew Dad was sleeping with me. She just turned her head. She didn't do a thing about him climbing in my bed. "He is a drunk. He don't know better," were some of the excuses, while my precious body ached his sexual abuses. Mom said she didn't want bad publicity. Never mind the hell that he was causing me. Her only concern was our neighbor's thoughts. She didn't even try to bring it to a halt. After several years, no more could I take. I had to go away for my sanity's sake. I am far away from both my parents now. I thank the Lord that I made it through somehow. Kidnap, rape. Pretending to solicit money for a church donation, instead he kidnapped me for sexual exploitation. I was told that my parents no longer wanted me. He said to him they had relinquished custody. For 7 long years, I was sexually abused. He said to call him Dad. Mind was so confused. Mature, he lost interest in me and kidnapped more young prey. When he went to work, we both ran away. I didn't want him to go through what I had. Police turned us back over to our mom and dad. Arranged rape. My mother allowed me to be abused by a man that she owed drug money to. She told me to pretend that I was a runaway. What she'd actually done was arranged the rape. In the apartment of a convicted rapist, she left me alone. He, in turn, raped me while she was gone. I was hysterical when she finally came back. Uncaring, she took me home and left to smoke more crack. After months of keeping it in, I finally told my father. He called the police, who came and arrested her. I hate her guts and hope to never see her again. I pray to God one day that this nightmare will end. Raping drunk. 4 years ago, I was raped by my aunt's drunk boyfriend. That no-good dirty dog has struck yet again. He raped my little cousin, who is only 10 years old, but our family did not believe her when she told. They didn't believe me either when I told what he did. They said I wanted attention and was being a silly kid. I still have bad nightmares, can't stand the sight of him. I feel really bad that my cousin is his latest victim. I feel a sense of duty to let someone know. Since our kin won't help, where else can I go? Degraded. My stepdad stopped sleeping with Mom in bed. When she went to work, he slept with me instead. He fondled all over me and my baby brother. Said if I told, he'd kill us. That included Mother. Fondling led to rape, sodomy, oral copulation. Inside, I felt human degradation. I shot him in his back, real good one day. Time came to press charges. Not one word would he say. Painful secret. My own father has slept with me in bed. It is part of growing, is all he ever said. Seems he never wanted to lie when Mom was there. He said it was our secret and that she wouldn't care. It was very painful when he laid me down. You will get used to it, as he sexed me like a hound. I tried my very best to hold back the cry, but inside it felt as if I were going to die. It seemed from this bondage I'd never be free. As years went by, he just kept prying into me. I finally grew the nerves to say I'd take no more. No longer would I be treated as my daddy's whore. That day, our secret came to a stop. It was no longer possible to view him as my pop. When I go to sleep, I have real bad dreams. The pain will always be. That is how it seems. Insane rapist. Committed at 7 to a mental institute because Dad treated me like a prostitute. It started when Mom left me in his care In a hotel room, he made me strip bare. He tied up my arm, shot drugs in my vein, did things to me he knew were insane. Reunited with Mom, 2 years later, I told, I had to rid my chest of that heavy load. Only 13. I was only 13 when I had my first baby. A cousin over twice my age treated me like a lady. To our relatives, he blatantly denied. She's his spitting image. It's obvious he lied. My sister said he should have been put under the jail to rot. My daughter is beautiful, and everyone loves her a lot. Forcefully entered. Teacher said stay after school for extra work with my study. When everyone was gone, he forcefully entered my body. No one believed me when I told what he'd done. They stayed away from me. Our friendship was disowned. His wife, bless her heart, came forth, said he was guilty indeed. She said he'd raped another in town where they'd lived previously. Molest teacher. Molested by my teacher when I was in grade 3. I told, but not a single soul believed me. I lost interest in school, drifted one grade to the next. Eventually, I gave up and threw away my text. Years later, I fell in love with a guy who said he'd protect me. Only thing he did was put me on the street. My self-esteem plunged to an all-time low. At 15 years of age, I became a hoe. Later I found out the teacher did confess. Too bad they didn't listen when I was at my best. Sodomized. Be aware, my sisters, Mom always warned. I, her son, was not told of perverts to be alarmed. Right under her nose, the neighbor sodomized me. He said it was a secret between him and me. One day we were riding. I burst into tears and told my mom how he'd hurt me badly in my rear. Sick joys. Let us not forget to warn our little boys about the sex maniacs who seek them for sick joys. Forced open. Mom was nice enough to take in our cousin. A nice young man, though he definitely wasn't. I was in 4th grade when he snuck in my bed one night and forced open my womb with all of his might. I was so frightened to tell what he had done. He said it was just a little game of fun. Thinking of it makes me feel like a 2-bit slut. Today, spaced out on drugs, to anybody, I give it up. Bitten pee. My pee-pee he used to suck and bite. Somehow I felt it was not right. Nobody paid me any attention when I decided it to mention. Who is to protect the little one when this foul thing is done? Deadly molest. At 4 months old, I was laid to rest. Daddy molestation was my cause of death. Molesting me, he pillowed my face to stifle my cries. Unable to breathe, I shut my eyes. If this is but a sampling, the life I would have lived, I'm much better in heaven. Father, please forgive. Rape sales. My sister, I, and neighbor kids were lined up for sex by both of our mothers, so they could get a fix. Raped and molested 3 years, several times a week. John's picked among us as if we were beef. While being raped, our moms just sat and looked. Their excuse for doing this is that they were hooked. Sexually mutilated. Lured into the woods by his scare-tacked threats. At 7 years old, I was sexually mutilated near death. Raped anal and orally. My penis was also chopped. Just because on him, I could not pee on top. He choked me with a cord, stabbed and left me to die. I was found bloody naked, in the mud, barely alive. Practically incoherent when found after the attack. Unfortunately, not soon enough to have my genitals reattached. He was found guilty in the first degree. I don't feel that I will ever be set free. Sordid rapist. I had a big brother who played lots of sports. I discovered he also liked sex in different sorts. When our parents were gone, he slept with sisters and brothers. Promised us cookies and candy if we didn't tell mother. I started having problems. Mom begged me, "What's wrong?" It was hard to tell her what he did when she was gone. One day she sent me to a psychiatrist. I couldn't tell him either. Something as awful as this. Years went by. I held in all of the disgust. I didn't feel in anyone I could ever trust. Frightened. Though it was beyond dark, Mom told me to go play in the park, while she and her friends sat and smoked, something I believe referred to as coke. This guy looked me up and down. Frightened, I tried to get around. He forced me down in the dirt, pulled down my pants. My TT was hurt. I rushed home and told my mother, who still did not wish to be bothered. I ran in my room and went to bed. Not another word about it was said. Sculpturing rapist. Daddy slept with both, my 2 sisters and I. Mom was fully aware, but chose to let it slide. Sculpturing wood, he stayed home all day. He'd become enraged if we came home a minute late. Be nice, and I won't meddle with your siblings. He raped them both behind my back until they were trembling. When he wanted me, he sent them to the store. He'd be finished when they walked back through the door. One day there was a lecture at school about sex abuse, which informed to tell if we were being used. We all came forth and told what was going on. Both our parents quickly left our home. Tore apart. I was very smart and made good grades in school, until mind cluttered of being raped by that fool. It happened one day when Mom left me alone with her boyfriend in the few moments she was gone. As I cleaned my room, he came in and said, "Come, let me help you. Clean up first your bed." He snuck up from behind when I threw up the cover, yanked me into bed as if I were his lover. I shouted, kicked, and screamed. He said, "No one will hear," forced down my undies and tore apart my rear. To Mother, he said he really meant a lot, and if I cared for her, I'd say a thing not. Tricked. At 12 years old, I ran away from home because Daddy wouldn't leave my body alone. Met at the bus station by a real nice guy. He treated me to dinner and some cherry pie. When we finished eating, he showed me the town. I was very happy as we drove around. 1 week later, he said, "I need money quick. To keep us going, I'd have to pull some tricks." Most Johns said they loved the younger girls, said it was the best feeling in the world. If Daddy had kept his filthy hands off me, I wouldn't be out here on these ragged streets. Devastated. My date said, "Get ready, we're going to the drive-in." When we turned the corner, in hopped his 2 friends. Forced to perform sex on all 3 of the scums. Totally devastated. They were just having fun. They all laughed the entire while. I couldn't find a thing about to smile. Original date asked, "Well, what's wrong?" as he kindly drove me back to my home. When word circulated, I felt so filthy. Despite them 3 bastards were the one guilty. I was so shamed that I never did tell. Just suffered all alone in my own hell. Daddy's girl. Me and Dad are parents of a newborn. Though she is innocent, inside, I still mourn. It's got to be the hardest thing in the whole world for any daughter to give birth to her own daddy's girl. What will I tell her when Grandpa question comes? She'll be so confused when she learns they are one. How I wish things were different between Daddy and me. Oh, how I wish he would have let my body be. Father's sin. With help from the underground, me and my son are on the run because his own father used to pry into his small rectum. We tried to get help from the judicial system. They said he was fantasizing and did not believe him. We miss our home, friends, and family. But my main concern is for his safety. It's so nice to see him smiling once again. I hope one day he's able to forget his father's sin. Visible rape. 4 people passed while I was being raped on the ground near Oakland's Merritt Lake. Struck by a man who appeared out of thin air, he dragged me down a slope and tore off my underwear. Raped and beat 10 minutes while joggers continued to run. He told each one of them that he had a gun. After the ordeal, I drove back to my Berkeley home. Badly bleeding and swelling. Police were telephoned. They told me that I was lucky to be alive, that no one called for help. They couldn't figure out why. Perverts. I'm 3 years old. I've contracted VD. Mom and her boyfriend both laid up with me. She took me to the doctor. It was he who realized that I'd been infected. Police were notified. Mom told them she was trying out masturbation. Her boyfriend said that he'd performed oral copulation. I'm too young to know exactly which words to use to describe in detail the perverted abuse. Forcibly rammed. One day, my aunt gave a big barbecue. I had to use the bathroom when we were through. My teenage cousin said, "I'll show you the way to the bathroom." Once there, he threw me inside and forced off my blooms. He covered my mouth with his oversized hands. My vagina was broken and forcibly rammed. "Don't ever tell anyone," that no-good bastard said. "If you do, I promise, you will end up dead." He went back outside, as if nothing happened, joined in with our other relatives laughing. Painfully, I made my way back out the door. Took me a long time to tell what happened to me at 4. Disgrace. When I was 6 years of age, I experienced a violent sex rage. While we were visiting my great auntie, my decrepit uncle peed inside of me. I ran out of the bathroom really quick, told Mom in me he had put his stick. She held me tight, packed us in the car. From these relatives, we've stayed far. The incident affected me a great deal. The very thought of it makes me ill. With plenty of sex all over the place, no one, nowhere, should suffer this disgrace. Sexually bludgeoned. 20 years ago, Dad killed my best friend. He sexually molested and bludgeoned her head in. He said if I told, he would kill me too. You'll be put away, and they won't believe you. I forgot about it after such a long time. One day, it suddenly all came back to mind. The only way I could set my conscience free is by telling what I knew to the authorities. My dear friend, who was only 8 years old, peace, love, and may our dear Lord bless her soul. Stolen virginity. My precious little baby was only 3 when her daddy stole away her virginity. I couldn't handle it when I found out, so I took my little precious and we both got out. Now we are fighting whose custody she should be in. I know he just wants her so he can do it all again. Date rape. My first sex encounter, unfortunately, was rape by a friend who came for a dinner date. In the midst of eating, he said, "Come, let's dance." Abruptly, he threw me and tore off my pants. I tried everything I could to get him to stop. He ignored me and climbed right on top. I was very angry at having been betrayed. He acted as if everything was okay. Casually, he said, "Well, how was it?" This despite tears coming down my eyes. I yelled at him to get out of my home. The whole rotten experience won't leave me alone. Star rapist. Because he was the star of the school's football team, I was urged not to tell and destroy his dream. Think of his reputation, along with bad publicity. They didn't even address the rotten things he did to me. It happened after we came from a school gathering. He asked if he could come in and have something to drink. He turned the music on and up very loud. He then raped me, but no one heard me shout. 2-bit rapist. Like some 2-bit junkie, he had to have a fix, but instead of drugs, he fiended oral sex. He told my brother and I not to tell our mom, that he made us lick him when he babysat in our home. Helpless. Of some babysitters, you must be aware, BEFORE, leaving children in their care. They may not at all be what they appear. It's sometimes normal, look behind doors that turn queer. By my babysitter, I was repeatedly raped. Afraid to tell Mom, there seemed no escape. He rammed inside my body as though it were a toy. I felt very helpless as a little boy. He told me if I ever told Mom, she would suffer bodily harm. That's why I kept the secret all shut up. That's why my life has been very corrupt. Traumatized. Dressed as a police, he forced me in his car, while another drove us into the woods afar. In all were 6 uniformed white men, who raped and sodomized me over and over again. This pain and torture went on for days. My mouth is where their semen was sprayed. They scribbled KKK on my upper torso. Also, nigger, nigger was written just below. In a hefty garbage bag on the ground I lie. That is where they tossed me out to die. Found with stinky feces smeared all over me. I was so traumatized, I could hardly speak. Inside the hospital's emergency room, I was only treated for my outer wounds. Friends and family, who love me very much, felt this horrid crime shouldn't be kept hush. There was much controversy surrounding the case, largely in part due to my black face. In months that followed, my word bloomed full doubt. Judge ruled fabrication and threw the case right out. Rape is devastating, whether it happens to a black or a white. I know because I lived it 4 days and 3 nights. I thank God for my life and for seeing me through. He'll see guilty parties get justice due. Rape Lady. I was kidnapped one night while walking the street by 2 teenaged boys and a rough young lady. Forced to perform on each an oral sex act, she viciously rammed my vagina with a wire coat rack. When they finally stopped torturing me, she's the one who kicked me back out on the street. I gave police their license number that I'd written down. Her mom thought she could do no wrong and hid her out of town. Just because I chose to hook for a living does not mean that I am without feeling. Powerless. At 5, I was molested by the school bus driver. When I told my parents, they managed to have him fired. In all outward appearances, I appeared to be fine. All the hurt was buried in this little heart of mine. 3 years ago, at the age of 33, I found myself acting irrationally. When my preschool children defied my order, I spanked them so hard it was a long beating border. Parents Anonymous helped me out with my behavior. From there I went to therapy, which helped even greater. Talking to the therapist made me realize that there was still much anger buried down inside. I now know that my rage stemmed from earlier experiences, back to when I was young and powerless. Parents, take care of your children after abuse is discovered. Healing needs to begin at once so that they can recover. Adoptive rapist. Me and my twin were adopted and raped for 11 years. Sexual abuse occurred daily by the University of California teacher. Forced to have sex with him, male students, and other children, there were many pictures taken of the sick perversion. When developing his pictures in the university's lab, he'd become so aroused right there, he's make us gap. He told both my sister and I, do not tell. If you do, your twin will end up going to jail. On one weekend trip we took up to his cabin, he took 5 girls and made us all sleep nude with him. When his wife found out, she thought of his reputation. She kept quiet. We fell in a spiral of self-destruction. Abused 3 more years, we felt it was time. With a lawyer's help, were suing for every dime. More important, though, is to make everyone aware. This can happen to anyone, anytime, anywhere. Scarred. Both me and my brother were put up for sale by our cocaine addict mother, who informed us not to tell. Most of the Johns were great-grandpa types. Little kids are who they seemed to best like. She traded us for some stupid dope. Mentally, it scarred us and left us without hope. Burst open. At 6 months old, Mom held open my legs so Daddy could come inside. He burst me wide open. I laid there and died. I'll never understand why they were so cruel to me. I'll never understand why they couldn't just let me be. I am much happier up here with my Lord. Looking down, I see the problem have gotten worse. Tampered. Rushed to the hospital when I was 2 weeks old. My brother rammed his finger into my little hole. When Mom changed me, blood was in my pamper. That's when she discovered my vagina had been tampered. I hope in the future she keeps a closer watch. Against his strength, I'm no kind of match. Dad's sex mate. I ran away from my neat little home because my daddy wouldn't leave me alone. I tried telling Mom what was going on. She thought with me something was wrong. So out the door I headed straight. I didn't like being my dad's sex mate. Filthy rapist. We lived in a dark, filthy apartment as virtual prisoners with our parents. Raped, sodomized, and beaten in our gloomy room. We weren't allowed outside, not even for school. For us, this was the only way of life. We may have had other siblings who didn't survive. Neighbors who cared called the authorities. All 9 of us were taken immediately. 3 months later, they arrested Mom and Dad for treating all of us so very bad. We thank God for coming to our rescue and are looking forward to starting life anew. Ill incest. Psychiatric counseling I'm now undergoing. My own daddy inside me went hoeing. When Mother learned of the ill incest, she told his army superiors, who in turn made an arrest. All of his pension money went straight out the window. They didn't like fathers treating daughters like a hoe. He was discharged dishonorably. Man who sleeps with his daughter is nothing but a sleaze. He received 15 years behind bars. Surely this will teach, keep hands from me far. I am really glad I got it off my chest. Now at night when sleep, I sincerely rest. Sick molest. On the front room couch, my cousin felt all over me. Said if I ever told, he'd kill my family. Don't move left or right, he threatened, and kept on maliciously petting. It wasn't until a decade later when I revealed my chest. That's when I, no longer afraid, told of the sick molest. Child care rapists. Today, I was molested at my child care facility by the people who were taking care of me. After Mom picked me up, I was very quiet. Later on that night, I couldn't hold in the vomit. Afterwards, I told that I had been hurt by a bad man doctor and a bad lady nurse. On child care centers. In some of our nation's child care centers is where some of our kids' genitals are first entered. So unless you feel you really can trust, at home with them stay. That is a must. Great sorrow. Unfortunately, some victims do not survive because they're beaten and raped so badly they die, as was the case of a young, beautiful girl who was loved by all who knew her in this world. Walking home one day from the ice cream shop, in the church house she decided a brief stop. A Sunday school teacher's sex advances she rejected. A heartless rape, murder she unfortunately was subjected. Her loved ones noticed her missing right away, pinned her pictured posters all over the North Bay. When in some garbage bags her precious body was found, there was great sorrow all throughout the town. How could something so awful happen to one so neat? She was so young and innocent, with a smile so sweet. We know she's at rest, up there in the sky, happy with our God in the sweet by and by. Neighborly rapist. Me and my brother were invited to the clubhouse by a friendly neighbor who turned out to be a louse. He quickly locked the door once we were inside. We had no idea he had sex on his mind. He threatened us both not to make a sound, and before we knew it, his pants and shorts were down. Helpless, I watched in pain as he hurt my little brother. Forcefully, he humped me too, said, "Do not tell your mother." We were sore from having been forced in our rear end. We never told, and we never went there again. Somehow we knew what he did wasn't right, but were much too young to put up a fight. Pornography. Mom's boyfriend's only interest was getting to me, to present me to the world of pornography. He asked if I'd like to make some easy money. Said there would be nothing to it at all funny. Seemed an easy $20 just to dance, but when I got there, he forced off my pants. Most humiliating were the movie cameras going, capturing dirty sex to me he was doing. I was too afraid to tell Mother what he'd done, so I packed up my things and ran away from home. I told my father I just had to get away. I never told either of them that I had been raped. Executive rapist. I met a bank executive through Big Brother's organization. Soon after we became friends, he engaged me in sexual relations. At his Lake Tahoe home, he was obsessed with me. I was continuously assaulted and subjected to pornography. Sorry, very sorry, he told the judge for what he'd done. 7 years elapsed that I endured this wrong. Some say the conviction destroyed his 25-year banking career. I feel that I'm the one who was destroyed here. Molested. Looking through the window, I saw my oldest sister and brother, naked in bed, having sex with each other. I was very shocked, couldn't believe my eyes. When she molested me, I felt so bad inside. My hatred for women lasted very long. I knew what she had did to me was wrong. Grown up, I asked her, why had she bothered me? She said our father had abused her sexually. Rebound molester. I am a victim of molestation. I am also guilty of the same violation. I did some awful things underneath the covers to each one of my younger brothers. I hope one day they can forgive their big sis. Maybe if I'd gotten help, it wouldn't have come to this. Prom rape. The first time I had sex, I was brutally raped by the guy who took me on my senior prom date. He felt as though I owed him my body, said he was nice enough to have taken me. Despite he'd given me bruises, broken ribs, and 2 black eyes, I was called strange, stupid, for not giving in to the guy. Not once was I viewed as the victim. After all, they said, it's not like I didn't know him. I'm afraid of sex and have opted for celibacy. Sometimes get the impression that something's wrong with me. Tormented. Raped, robbed, and beaten, I felt, compelled to leave my home. My dog was nearly killed. I can't stand to be alone. I'm so scared and tormented. Don't know what to do. At times I feel like running. The problem is, where to? No matter what my future, life will never be the same. Already unable to see, now I feel completely lame. Sex fiends. One night we went joyriding with 2 neighbor friends when suddenly they stopped and wanted to come in. We were so scared and knew not what to do. Somehow we got away. We're 2 fast-running fools. In that old blue truck, they searched left and right. We hid behind a bush, well out of their sight. Tired of looking, they finally went on. We were relieved and walked all the way back home. You can't trust anyone. This just goes to show. Not when they are fiending down below. Ill rape. At a campus party, he said he was ill. Politely, I helped him to his dorm, where he suddenly healed. Before I realized it, he was raping me. I was so shocked that I couldn't even scream. Rape Dad. Mom knew Dad was having sex with me all along. More important to her was that he brought the paycheck home. When I asked her if she would make him stop, she accused me of having seduced my pop. Raped or molested. If you've been raped or molested, you must get some help. Do not for 1 minute blame it on yourself. Regardless how hard it may seem to you at first, it's better to let it out before the pain gets worse. If you try to cover it later on down the road, life will be conflicting, and heavier will be the load. If you care for sanity, one thing you must do: get some counsel. Deal with it now. I promise you will get through. Must tell. If you have been raped, you must tell someone so that you can get the help that you need to move on. Don't think it'll go away and just let you be. You really have to deal with it in order to be free. No longer free. At an early age, my virtue was forced from me. I no longer felt like a child. I no longer felt free. He said, "Do not worry, it happens every day," and that, sooner or later, it was bound to come my way. For years I tried not to think about it, but it kept coming up, no matter how hard I fought it. When finally able to talk out, the anger, hurt, and pain, I stopped feeling so terribly ashamed. Now I am at peace and happy once again. I know now I wasn't responsible for his awful sin. Must talk. Though it may have happened a long, long time ago, it may just be why your spirits are down low. With someone you must talk out all the hurt. Only then will you be free and able to move forth. Hurt. As a young girl, when I was raped, I felt lots of hurt. As a young girl, when I was raped, I felt just like dirt. As a young girl, when I was raped, I felt icky inside. As a young girl, when I was raped, I just wanted to die. Violated. I once knew nothing about sex. That is, until one day, my person was violated upon in an ill-mannered way. I felt really low, dirty, and disgusted. Culprit was someone I knew and once had even trusted. My virtue he just took away. He said it was no big deal. He didn't give a damn how bad it made me feel. He finished up, then just went about his merry way. But for me, it was the beginning of many a hellish day. No right. 'Cause its brother, dad, or any other kin gives them no right to commit the sin of violating and taking away from you your virtue, which, in my point of view, is yours to part with when you're DAM ready. No one has the right to force you to Betty. So do yourself a favor, if it happens to you. Tell all the world, and his mama too. Never told. After being raped for a second time, I never told and tried to put it out my mind. I couldn't bear twice going through the system of the courts who seemed to care less about the victim. Over the years, my heart was filled with so much hate. I never realized it stemmed back to the rapes. The more I talked about it, the better I began to feel. Getting it out is what I needed for my heart to heal. Misery. I had a baby by my own father. It's still hard to accept him raping his own daughter. I left the child in the hospital's nursery. I couldn't bear being reminded of the misery. In spite of what he did, Mom stayed with him. I don't know if I'll ever forgive either of them. Can't tell. I have a mouth that can't tell anyone when he molests me just for fun. I have feet but can't run away when he fondles me and thinks it is okay. I have fingernails that can't scratch his eyes when his oversized pea thing tears open my insides. Who am I? A newborn, unable to protect myself from harm. I may be 2 or 3, still without strength to fight my way free. At the age of 4, 5, or 6, unable to beat him with a stick. 7, 8, 9, or 10, frightened to silence, raped over again. 11, 12, or even older, ashamed, walking with a down head, wishing I was dead. Assaulted. At the age of 6, I was raped by my stepdad. For many years I thought I'd done something bad. He'd told me that if I ever told anyone, the police would come and take him from our home. Also, Mom would lose her job, and it would be all my fault. That's why I never told anyone about the assault. My fault? I was a young victim of sexual assault, but I was made to feel as if it were my fault. The police locked me in a room for a real long time. When they finally appeared, suggested I was lying. I was shocked because I knew nothing of sex. So how in hell could I have concocted such a hoax? It was worse in court. He pleaded not guilty. His lawyer did all he could to make me look filthy. After a little time in jail, judge allowed him to go home. I'd never felt so betrayed or so all alone. I tried hard to forget the hurting and the pain, but after many years have found deep in it has remained. Silent tears. I was so happy until that day he took something so precious away. Softly I've cried through the years, holding back pain and tears. Emotions fluctuate up and down, 1 minute a smile, the next a frown. I have tried to keep it out mind, but seem it's ever deeply ingrained. Betrayed. When children are sexually abused, they feel betrayed and their minds are confused. The best way to help them through such an ordeal is to get them help so their little hearts can heal. Ask God to give them peace within, and still they weren't responsible for the rotten sin. Sex abuse. Unfortunately, sex abuse happens every day to people all over the world. The sad thing is, it's kept to a hush most time when it occurs. Must listen. We must listen when children drop us hints. Something by it is bound to be meant. Their heavy hearts are tangled in shock and disbelief. From us, they seek comfort, understanding, and relief. Confused. Though I'm away from home, I do not feel free. I've never told Mom what Daddy did to me. Should I tell or should I let it go? I am so confused, don't know what to do. Tell. As a young girl, I was forewarned by my dear mother to come to her and tell if ever I was bothered. Home from kindergarten, about to take a nap, my uncle sat in a chair, exposed with his legs a gap. He asked if he could put that awful thing in me. As loud as I could, I began to scream. Startled, he turned his head. I ran like a bat out of hell. Stayed out until my sister came, and first thing I did was tell. Dad told him, "Be glad you didn't finish up what you started. Right now you'd be dead." With that, he quickly parted. After that, we never saw him again. It's too bad you can't even trust your kin. Much better. I feel so much better now that it's all out. Gone is all that pain and all of that self-doubt. If you, too, are a silent victim, please get help. Now is the time. Suffering. To innocent young children, it really is not fair to cause them pain and suffering their hearts just cannot bear. Before you think a thought of hurting a little one, think of all the sorrow to them that will be done. Low down. Such a low down, dirty, rotten, selfish deed, to force yourself upon one to fulfill your needs. Why bother one so young, or two you are not willing, when there are many others who can tend your feeling? It's really not worth the long suffering caused by your action for a few lousy seconds of your sextisfaction. Scum. No good, low down, dirty, rotten, scummy, incestuous, cock-robbing, sodomizing, bastard you. You have no right to force your slimy, icky, stinky, maggoty self into a place you know you are not wanted. Bastard you! Private parts. Children, with their smiles so bright, please don't turn their day to night by hurting their little private parts, saddening their precious little hearts. Afterwards. Afterwards, I didn't want anything to do with men. I even found it hard to talk to any of them. Emotions started surfacing about 1 month later. Talking out the pain has made me feel much better. It was very helpful, knowing I wasn't alone. Other victims put it behind, find happiness, and move on. Attacked. My first night at school, I was attacked. I froze, and as best I could, relaxed. Off guard, I kicked and hurt him down below. Free, I ran as fast as I could go. Though he didn't get to finish up the job, I still feel betrayed. My virtue was nearly robbed. Not until the next morning did it really hit. That's when I raged into a mad fit. My religious beliefs is what has helped me through. Without dear Lord Jesus, don't know what I'd do. Terrified. Terrified to tell anyone what was happening to me. Scared to disobey him. After all, he was my daddy. As I grew into my teens, it started getting worse. But I understood things better than I did at first. Nevertheless, I felt dirty, worthless, and cheap. Hatred for men inside me was implanted very deep. I have always felt that it was my fault. Worse than the actual molesting is the guilt. Ashamed. I didn't know having sex with my dad was wrong. Ever since I was a child, it has been going on. I felt no control over my body or emotions. He bought me special gifts and paid me lots of attention. When I learned it wasn't right, I tried getting him to stop. He didn't agree and said that he would not. I was ashamed to have strangers know my secret, but my friend convinced me it was for the best. Destroyed. At 10 years old, I attempted suicide due to an incestuous childhood that began when I was 5. It took 10 long years and lots of help from my mate to come to terms with it and freely talk out the hate. My older sister thinks sex is the dirtiest thing in the world. My younger sister doesn't care and is a hooker as a young girl. Our father was wrong for having hurt us all. We were destroyed while he was having himself a ball. Nasty things. Sexually aggressive at 7 years old. What I learned at home has made me this bold. With other kids, when I try letting off the steam, they think I'm weird for doing nasty things. Rotten ordeal. 'Cause we can't use big words to describe what was did. No one wants to believe us, innocent young kids. On the witness stand, lawyers make us feel as if we're responsible for the rotten ordeal. We don't know why. Everyone rather blame us. We're too young to know about any of this disgust. Wronged. My uncle used to give me a quarter to sit upon his lap. All the while he'd run his hand right between my gap. At the time, I didn't know it was wrong. Mom said she would have killed him, if only she had known. I have told my precious daughter to tell if anyone touches her. That includes her father. Embarrassed. I began using drugs soon after I was raped. I was so embarrassed and thought I was gay. When my coach asked if I'd like to go for a ride, I had no idea he would tear open my behind. When he dropped me off, he said, "Do not tell." Ever since that day, I have not been well. Damaged. Raped by my big brother when I was just a kid. He have no idea the internal damage it has did. I never told Mom. Dad wasn't alive to tell. It's been 20 years that I've lived with this hell. I didn't want anyone to know that this happened to me. Having another male inside made me feel like a freak. When I start unloading to a counselor, the heavy burden was finally lifted from my shoulder. As a man, I feel much better about myself. I am glad that I finally sought help. If, as a boy, you too were sodomized, get help today because you'll feel much better inside. Nightmare. I'm 42 and still recovering from a nightmare. Raped from 7 to 12 by my dad, who didn't care. The sexual abuse caused me severe health problems. Also troubled in school, employment, and social relations. I felt crazy, but couldn't figure out why. Strange as it seems, the connection was realized. Survivors often have no memory of the crime. I spent 25 years blocking it out of my mind. With psychologists' help, support groups, and loving husband, I'm beginning to feel like a normal person once again. Incestuous families have no talk rule that keeps incest going. It's imperative the awful secret be brought out into opening. Intolerable. As a grown-up, I kept having recurring nightmares. Couldn't put my finger on it, but I always woke up scared. It took 3 long years of intensive therapy before I remembered as a child being abused sexually. The violence was so intolerable, I'd totally blanked it out. It was responsible for a lot of my self-doubt. Now that it's all out, into the opening, I function much better as a human being. Painful. Mom's boyfriend raped me when I was 8 years old. He threatened to kill my brother if ever I told. I must have slipped unconscious while he was raping me. When I awoke, he was washing off my body. I put on my clothes and hurried outside. There was painful burning between my small thighs. I stayed in bed after returning home. I felt really bad and wanted to be left alone. When Mom found blood stains in my panties, I was still afraid to tell who did that to me. When my brother convinced me that he would not die, I went ahead and told, as we both sat there and cried. Ski mask rapist. I am a tiny, fragile, 84-year-old, raped at gunpoint in the church confessional, asked to pull up my blouse, and told to do a sex act. He put a gun to my head when I said, I can't. I've killed other people, and will kill you too. That's what he said to me before the abuse. When he was caught, I couldn't positively identify. He raped many women in a ski mask disguise. His wife was also indicted along with him for receiving property he stole from his victims. Strip search rapists. I was paid $50,000 in an out-of-court settlement after I was raped by 3 deputies sheriff men. Stopped for a drunk driving test in which I fail, I was arrested, beaten, fondled, and thrown in jail. Stripped, searched, and raped later on that night by all 3 who supposedly work for what is right. Painfully entered. Raped by my counselor when I was very young. I was too afraid to tell anyone what he'd done. Out of all the boys, I was his pick. Every time he touched me, inside I felt sick. I was all confused about my sexuality. Feelings of being a homosexual, I repeatedly washed my body. One day he pretended we were going to dinner. He drove to his house instead. From behind, I was painfully entered. 35 years passed before I told my dad the rotten things he did to me when I was a lad. Sleaze. I was raped, but never told anyone. I packed some of my things and ran away from home. I thought if I left, Dad would be okay. A few months later, my little sister ran away. Living on the streets haven't been very easy, but it's better than living with a dad who is sleazy. Axe rapist. Raped and left with 2 chopped off arms by a man who I accepted a ride from. He stopped to release himself on the road, hit me across my back as I squat to unload. He tied up my hands and raped me in his van, made me drink liquor, raped me over again. I was very weak. From the alcohol, I passed out. When I finally came to, he ordered me to get out. You want to be free? He asked. Chopped off both arms with an axe. Shoved down an embank. Stuffed in concrete pipe. I walked 3 miles in tears I could not wipe. Next morning, I was found dressed only in my skin, holding arms and muscles, trying to keep blood in. Prospective hitchhikes, please be forewarned. You might suffer sexual and physical harm. Suburb rape. Raped and sodomized by affluent sports stars, despite my condition of being mildly retard. Lured from the park to their cushy suburb, 8 of them looked on as I was raped by others. I was raped with harsh objects and forced to perform sex acts. Among objects were a broomstick and miniature baseball bat. When I told my teachers what they did to me, police weren't notified for another 3 weeks. One of the onlookers was a police lieutenant's son. When asked about the case, replied, "She wanted it done." There were 5 arrests, including brothers who co-captained the team. How could they be so callous to me, retarded and 17? Campus rape. As I brought in my groceries from the store, he emerged as I was about to shut the door. Smiling, he flashed a large pocket knife. Right before my eyes went my precious life. I told him to take anything. He yelled, "Shut up, bitch." He kicked my belly and left side of my face was niched. He took off his pants, forced me to my knees. "Do it now!" he screamed at me. He seemed to enjoy the terror in my eyes, made me put on his condom, and rammed my insides. Looked at me and laughed when he was finally through. From campus the next day, me and my roommate moved. Callous abuser. Whenever Mom refused Daddy in her bed, he slept with me and my sister instead. Fondled, raped, and sodomized for 14 long years, he callously abused us, despite our tears. He'd threatened our youngest sister if we didn't comply. We continued giving in so she wouldn't have to cry. He moved out when I reported to a counselor at school. We're suing him for compensation for years of being treated so cruel. Pastor rape. I was sexually abused in a Florida hotel by a man who preached about heaven and hell. He invited me to a PTL telethon. Once we were there, I was forced upon. I had planned on staying a virgin for my husband. To keep it quiet, he paid me $265,000. I hid the story for 7 long years. Came close to suicide. There were many tears. To a different pastor and businessman I confided. Literally tore apart. I could no longer hide it. Hell threat rape. You might go to hell if you don't have sex with me. That's what the minister told members of our church assembly. He raped and sodomized me and my little sister. He's also guilty of raping another parishioner. In all outward appearances, he was a model citizen. However, there existed a dark side that betrayed and violated women. A wolf in sheep's clothing is how some described him. He was sentenced 21 years for his awful crime. Bush raped. I was out for an early morning run. Out of nowhere, he accosted with a gun. Dragged behind a bush by the rotten man who raped me over and over again. Didn't want family told after I called the police. I preferred their minds to remain at peace. I was totally calm until the exam room. I went all to pieces when the doctor touched my womb. Counselor from a rape crisis center, God bless her little heart, was there to hold my hand and help keep me from coming apart. It's too bad there's no respect for elderly. You'd think with being old that they'd let us be. Deranged rapist. During a routine dental examination, I was put under heavy medication. Somewhat conscious but unable to get up, I was raped for hours by the deranged nut. After court, he lost his license and moved to another state. I hear he's practicing again, both dentistry and rape. Rape cop. Sitting in my car, chatting with a friend, an on-duty police walked up and ordered me to go with him. He drove to a nearby auto body shop, let me to a storage room where he retrieved a cot. I was raped and forced to oral copulate. His partner stood outside by that door to wait. During the lawsuit, I was arrested unlawfully. Rape charges were dropped after he pled guilty. He got off with 2 years, probation, and a misdemeanor, ordered to resign his post, and scolded for keeping me prisoner. Blind rape. Not one single thing can I see. He still had no mercy on me. He held his hands tight over my mouth, then raped me before running out. I used my sense of touch and smell to identify scum who put me through hell. Now they don't know if court can receive my only form of identity. It's not enough to stand in a court of law, always getting away with some technical flaw. Retarded rapist. I'm severely retarded, but that didn't stop him from adding me to the statistics of rape victims. Not only was I raped in the care group home, he left behind a baby in my womb. The case is too difficult to go through litigation due to my limited communication. Humiliated. Jogging the wooded path at the university, zipping up his pants, he jumped from behind a tree. I ran faster, trying to get away. He was determined and also picked up pace. He dragged me down a slope with his hands over my mouth, raped me on the ground, and warned me not to shout. Humiliation dominates despite therapy. I'm still very shaken. It won't let me be. I decided to go on and finish school. To this day, I haven't told my parents the awful news. Blood rape. I'm confined to a bed on wheels. He raped me, despite my being ill. He came into my room as soon as everyone left, took off my clothes, and forcefully helped himself. My blood brother did this awful thing to me. Thanks I get for allowing him to stay here free. Vain abuse. Home at State Hospital for the mentally ill, we were made to have sex against our will. Given illicit drugs by the psychiatric technician to weaken us further right before he dug in. He also used excess force and unlawful restraints when he molested and abused us in vain. Boldly he raped at 4 p.m, right inside the girls' dormitory room. Already fragile to physical and sex abuse, we came here for help, not for further use. Kiddie porn. A normal childhood I missed out on. My parents made me a star in kiddie porn. I've always felt dirty and low. Even when I wanted, I couldn't say no. A prostitute is what I am today. Really, I don't know any other way. Drunk rapist. Beaten and raped by my drunk husband over a period of time. Each time I called police, they'd say, "He's guilty of no crime." When I got a gun and shot the shit out his ass, this time when they came, they made an arrest at last. Now crime has been committed. They locked me up and said, "The only regret I have is that he isn't dead." Condo rape. National football player, who wouldn't accept no, raped me inside of his Atlantic condo. Forced to perform sex, I was also sodomized with a wine bottle. He threatened my life. Once upon a time, we were mutual friends. Should have gotten a willing person at his other end. Alcoholic rapist. My alcoholic father began raping me at 5. When I found courage to tell, Mom called me troublemaker and lie. For several weeks I cried, pleaded, threw up, and had nightmares. Mom walked around as though she didn't even care. Then one day she said, "I'll leave it up to you." Added, "Police would take him to jail. We'll starve and might die too." Being an insecure, emotionally and troubled 10-year-old, the sex abuse went on. I could not bear that load. About 1 year later, he finally left me alone, began abusing 2 younger cousins who live in our home. Corrupt. I had a child many years ago, after being raped by a guy I used to know. I held it once, after it was born, felt nothing but contempt as I held it in my arm. I have no regrets that I gave it up. I felt it would have made my life corrupt. Occupational rapist. Sick at home one day, when a bogus delivery man came to my door with a package in his hand. When I opened the door, he threatened my life, then raped me while brandishing a knife. Beverly Hills policeman was once his occupation. He watched me at the playground before committing the violation. Child rapist. My uncle raped 6 kids in our family. Our kin took him to court, where he was found guilty. With a smart lawyer, he appealed the verdict. He's walking free, though he's known as pedophilic. With enough money, you can get away with anything these days. That includes a crime as horrible as child rape. Incest. Some days it was more than 3 when Dad came home to rape me. Though I tired of the incest, not one day he gave me rest. The only thing that made him stop is when I reported him to the cop. Unbearable. I paid $1,000 to have my father killed because he began raping me after Mom took ill. He'd order me to watch TV in him and Mommy's room. This is where he would tear apart my womb. When I asked him, "Why are you doing this?" he simply replied, "There's nothing wrong with it." He raped me more and more after Mom was dead. I couldn't bear to look at him and covered up my head. When he began looking at my baby sister, I couldn't bear the thought of her in tears. Petted. Each night after dinner, sitting on Daddy's lap, he petted all over me while drunk Mom pretended to nap. This happened from age 3 until 12. He didn't seem the least ashamed of himself. When my friends told me this didn't happen with their dad, that's when I realized he was doing something bad. He became angry when I started saying no. He also became verbally abusive and cold. Grown up, I sought help for this past ill. Parents refused joint counseling, cut me out of their will. Ugly rapist. I was fast asleep in my safe security building when suddenly I woke to a bangy feeling. When he first struck, I thought I was dreaming. When he struck me again, that's when I began screaming. He secured a blindfold tight over my eyelids, said the reason for it was to keep his ugliness hid. I was repeatedly beaten, raped, and sodomized. When he said he always killed, I stopped fighting and complied. He left with $20. I had to untie myself. I called up my parents, who rushed over to help. My neighbor above who'd heard said she thought something wasn't right, but didn't want to get involved and turn off her light. Shocked. My teacher showed a special interest in me, took me home one day to show me something neat. She couldn't find it once we were there and returned to the room naked as a bear. Frozen there, I stood in a state of shock. I was hardly able to keep on my sock. She moved closer to assure all was okay. Next thing I knew, we were rolling in the hay. Only thing she wanted to show me unique was her overgrown, naked physique. The real reason I was her special boy was so she could use me for her sexual joy. Mansion rape. In the governor's executive mansion, our 16-year-old was raped by 4 teenage boys while their parents were away. Though 3 unnamed were minors, everyone think they know. All involved in treating our daughter like a hoe. 18-year-old pled guilty to underage drinking. I can't see what anyone of those scums were thinking. Fondled. He followed me into the lobby of my apartment building, then inside the elevator, where he began fondling. When he got off, I went up another floor, rushed in and told my dad what had just occurred. Dad looked out the window, spotted him on the sidewalk, chased him to the subway station, where he was then caught. Police think he's the exhibitionist who stalked other children. I am glad that they finally caught him. Disgusting rapists. I was kidnapped at 2 years old. They raped my body. They raped my soul. By forcing their great big selves into me, with those things that they use to pee. They kept me cooped up in a dirty van, did things to me I didn't understand. They had also kidnapped another, who watched over me like a brother. One day we snuck from that awful place. To the police we quickly raced. They went to arrest those disgusting creeps, who, for a long time, made us weep. Gang raped. I was gang raped by 3 young men, one of whom left a baby within. Don't know which one of them fathered her. Don't know what to tell my beautiful daughter. Nursery molester. On a Sunday morning, in the church's nursery, instead of babysitting, he was molesting me. In treatment, he was urged to disclose the names of other kids who he'd also did this shame. 63 children aged 1.5 to 4. This dreadful thing had also occurred. How would he know how to carry on this way at 10? What are we teaching our young gentlemen? Infantile rapes. Year after year I was slept with by my father. Mom knew, but it didn't seem to bother her. I was an emotional, crippled mute from the infantile rapes. Remnants of that legacy I never escaped. I've never been able to trust in any man, nor form a genuine relationship with any woman. I am old now, and have suffered long. For terrifying me, Dad and Mom were wrong. Maniac. I just fucked your sister, rapist said to his girlfriend. She stayed with him, despite his awful sin. I did all I could to forget when they had a child. She asked me to babysit. When he began looking like that maniac, it kept reminding me of the rape attack. Subconsciously, I was angry at him. Later realized it was because of his father's crime. Raped. Home alone one afternoon, as I lay in my bed, my sister's naughty boyfriend came in and said, "I raped and killed a girl in Detroit, Michigan. We'll do the same to you if you don't give in." He asked, "What position would you like to try?" I'd never been with a man. "None," I replied. He ripped off my clothes and tore into me. Over and over again he screamed, "Spread apart your feet." He gave me $1 and said, "Go buy ice cream at the store." Reminded me, "Do not tell," again, then ran out the door. With towel and hot water, crying in the bathroom, I tried wiping all of his filth from my womb. My aunt came, I told. She called police. He showed up again. She asked why. He looked through me as if I had sinned. In separate cars, we were taken to the station. I was treated as if I committed the violation. When the chief finished interrogating me, my eyes were so teary I could hardly see. When it got to court, the maniac kept saying, "I am innocent of the alleged laying." My sister helped none. She was on his side. "Judge, he did not." On the witness stand, she lied. He was freed, and I tried burying the hurt. I wanted to forget having been treated as dirt. Administrative rapist. Former chief administrative officer, ex-mayor candidate of San Francisco, was caught raping teenagers in a Mission District bordello. I knew I'd seen his picture on a campaign billboard, but wasn't sure at first because he said his name was George. 47 counts of rape. He was found guilty. But on his sentencing, they went light and easy. They said he was embarrassed by the situation enough. He was fined $100,000 and told to sweep streets up. Shamed. I was raped after a baseball game. Didn't tell because I was so ashamed. I delivered a son 9 months later. My love for him couldn't be any greater. His dad I don't think much of. Blessed I am from the man above. Forced into. When my parents died, I went to live with my uncle and aunt. Whenever left alone with him, he forced into my pants. Won't do any good to tell. No one will believe you. That's what he'd tell me each time he was through. I'm grateful to my aunt for providing a home for me, but felt I had no choice other than to leave. Campus abduction. On the way back to my dormitory, I was abducted as I walked from the campus library. Blindfolded, tied up, and driven to the woods. There I was beaten and raped by 2 thugs in hoods. After several hours, they finally let me go. I had to find my way back from the deserted road. Mom thinks I'm wrong for carrying a gun. I'll do what's necessary for my protection. Nasty sex. After watching a nasty sex scene on TV, my 12-year-old stepbrother tried it on me. First thing in the morning, then again that afternoon, when I went to use it, the pee stung my womb. My mom rushed me to the hospital's emergency. There, doctors told her I'd been entered forcefully. He was charged with rape, incest, and lewd and lascivious acts. At 5 years old, I was not ready for life's facts. Rape cousin. Left in my cousin's care when I was 9 years old. He raped me, but I never told. The next morning, he took me to the zoo. To keep me quiet, he bought me ice cream, too. I knew it was wrong, but didn't realize it wasn't my fault. Finger of blame would point to me, is what I thought. Later, when I found out how babies were made, I thought that I was pregnant from the rape. Whenever my stomach hurt, I'd rush to the bathroom so nobody would see the infant leave my womb. It didn't occur until years later that I'd been sexually abused. I was quite surprised to learn it happened to others, too. Pinstripe rapist. I was raped by a man clothed in his pinstripe vest while I sat in my car one morning studying for a test. Shoved to the passenger side as he reclined the seat. He covered my face with my jacket and screamed, "Don't look at me!" Forced to oral copulate him after he drove to another area. He attempted sodomy, then painfully tore in my vagina. Finished, he pulled up his pants and covered my face again. Before leaving, he stole my wedding ring and band. Collected, I drove to the hospital, screamed, "I've just been raped!" A nurse came quickly and whisked me away. Retaliatory rape. As I walked near Nevin and McDonald Avenue, I was kidnapped and raped in retaliation for something I didn't do. Pointing a gun, he ordered me to get in. He said he was almost killed by one of my friends. Drove to an unknown locale. I was raped and tied up. He repeatedly stabbed my neck and left me bleeding in the tub. After a couple of hours, he put a towel around my neck, wrapped me in a shower curtain, and threw me in the trunk. He dumped me in a parking lot near the Nimitz freeway. There I was found by a police around 10 o'clock that day. Awful rapist. When I spent weekends over Daddy's house, he fondled me under my pants and blouse. At his house, we bathed together in the tub. Playing with himself, he'd tell me to rub. One day, he stuck his man thing inside. It hurt me so bad, I sat there and cried. I told Mommy he hurt me bad down there and was doing things to me I couldn't bear. With Daddy, I really did not want to lay. Judge said I had to go with him anyway. Mom decided she would rather go to jail and sent me away from that awful hell. I know it's hard to be away from her little girl, but she loves me more than anything in this world. Each night when I go to bed, I pray, Lord, may this nightmare be over for me someday. Scared. At 2, she graphically described oral sex with her father. Judge granted, probable but not proved. He was doing this to our daughter. She'd come home from her visits, hysterically crying and screaming. Her hymenal ring was enlarged, and there was fibrous scarring. He claimed it was caused from bike riding and straddled chairs. If that was really the case, why is she so scared? Prominent molester. Prominent lawyer is now the subject of litigation for sexual battery and child molestation. I was at a bus stop, waiting at 2 a.m., when he drove up and asked me to do sexual favors for him. After declining, I telephoned the cops, who found another young man with him down a few blocks. Young man told officers he'd offered him a ride and fondled him sexually while he was inside. He was arrested, booked, and thrown in jail. Unfortunately, was released after he posted bail. Rotten things. My father used to mean the world to me until he forced away my virginity. Shortly afterwards, I left home. Couldn't bring myself to even talk to Mom. This all happened over 10 years ago, but I still find that it bothers me so. How can any father do this to his own son? I can't seem to stop thinking about rotten things he done. Senseless. Shame one can't jog safely in the park just because it's after dark. Beaten by a gang of thugs who raped and left me to die in my blood. For no apparent reason, they attacked, raped, beat, and tossed me forth and back. When they finished there, I lie. Miraculously, I didn't die. My health will never be the same. This senseless crime has left me lame. Shame one can't jog safely in the park, just because it's after dark. Update. This story is still true, but innocent men were fully exonerated, and the true suspect was finally captured. Sexual transgressor. When I remarried, I had no idea. My husband's only interest was my daughter's vagina. I came home from work one day and found him humping inside my 9-year-old baby, telling her, "Do not cry." Arrested and imprisoned for his bold transgression, I pray to God she'll be okay after therapy sessions. Severely abused. I was mentally and sexually abused by my stepfather and mother beginning at age 2. As a result, I have 92 personalities. Each persona carry a different memory. One of us remembers being hung down a well, terrified when snakes came swarming down like hail. Another recall him trying to make us touch his thing, as well as the cats. When we refused to do either, he became very mad. One day we saw him having sex with a cow. Though we ran fast, he caught us anyhow. We screamed. He tore our pants and held us in front, bare naked, up to the cow's pink caterpillar tongue. Whenever the mother discovered stepfather's cruel sex games, if she couldn't get through to him, we suffered her vengeful pain. On occasion, when he wanted a change of pace, he'd sit us on the table and ejaculate in our face. He started on me again the night I came from my prom. The mother stepped in with a gun, told him to leave our home. After 14 years, the damage had already settled in. Soon after we left home, and have survived as best we can. Tired of hiding, we take 3 baths a day. We still feel dirty. It doesn't go away. When we began therapy, we insisted he videotape each of the sessions to help others who've been raped. Victim's Prayer. If I am a victim of sexual assault, help make me realize it wasn't my fault. If I am a victim of molestation, heal me of mental devastation. If I am a victim of incest, help my family realize non-kin is best. If I am a victim of who's just a kid, help me to best describe what was did. If I have turned in the blame, help me to stop feeling ashamed. If I am stagnant from the hurt, help me to utilize all my self-worth. If I was transmitted a sexual disease, curable one, I pray, so mind can ease. If I haven't told anyone yet, help me to get it off my chest. Father, these things I ask each day. In Jesus Christ, your beloved Son, I pray. Amen. Sexual abuse information. Myths and facts about rape. Myth: rapists are strange men in dark alleys. Fact: over 1/3 of the rape victims are friends of the rapist. About 1/3 of the assaults occur in the victim's home. Myth: rape is the result of uncontrollable passion. Fact: most victims and place where the rape occur are premeditated. Myth: women ask for rape by dressing proactively. Fact: rapists plan their targets and are not looking for women dressed in any particular way. Myth: women want to be raped. Fact: women do not enjoy being the victim of this violent and humiliating crime. Myth: only young women are raped. Fact: victims range in age from 2 months to 92 years. Males, children, teenagers, and sometimes men are also victims. Myth: you can spot a rapist anywhere. Fact: sex offenders are normal-looking people from all walks of life. Facts about rape. Rape is a violent sexual crime which causes fear, injury, humiliation, and psychological trauma. It is a crime of violence, not passion. Sexual assault is used to express anger, power, control, and dominance. All women are potential rape victims regardless of age, race, class, religion, occupation, or physical description. Sometimes even males are the victim of rape. Rape can occur anywhere, at any time, in public or in your home, day or night. A rapist will rape again and again, generally in the same area and in the same manner. Rapists are not necessarily strangers. In fact, over 1/3 of reported cases, the rapist is an acquaintance, neighbor, friend, or relative of the victim. Most rapists appear to be normal. They come in all races, color, and economic backgrounds. Most rapists carry a weapon or threaten the victim with violence or death. Forcible rape is increasing in this country more than any other violent crime. Rape is one of the most underreported crimes. The majority of rapists continue until caught. Report any kind of sexual assault. If you are raped, go to a safe place immediately. Do not shower, bathe, wash your hands, brush your teeth, or use toilet. You may destroy important evidence needed in court. Do not clean up in any way until you've talked to the police. Call the police as soon as you can. The sooner you make the report, the greater the chances the attacker will be caught. Get medical attention as soon as possible. Contact a friend or family member you can trust. Call the Rape Crisis Center for support and information. Remember, you are the victim. You have nothing to feel guilty or ashamed about. You may want to contact a treatment or crisis center to help you deal with the consequences of the assault. Help for victims. Rape Crisis Centers. Rape crisis centers provide direct assistance to victims of sexual assault, such as 1. Crisis intervention. 2. In-person counseling. 3. Follow-up counseling. 4. Accompaniment to hospitals, criminal justice agencies, and social service agencies. 5. Information and referral. 6. Community and school prevention programs. 7. Self-defense programs. 8. Training for law enforcement, medical, mental health, and social service professionals. If you have trouble locating a rape crisis center in your local phone book, please call the National Abuse Hotline at 1-800-656-HOPE or 4673. These centers provide 24-hour support, and all services are confidential and free. Child sexual assault. Facts about child sexual assault. Sexual abuse of children within the family is the most hidden, least publicized form of child abuse. In spite of its taboo nature and the difficulty of detection, some researchers believe such abuse may be even more common than physical abuse. In discussing sexual abuse, incest means sexual activity between persons who are blood related. Intrafamilial refers to sexual activity between family members not related by blood, step-parents, boyfriends, etc. A person with no prior history of sexual problems can be tempted to sexually abuse a child in the intimacy of family life, especially at times of stress or when adult relationships are poor. A person who chooses to involve a child in sexual activity can easily make the child believe that sex is a special game or a normal and necessary part of being loved and accepted. The child then fears disgrace, hatred, or blame for breaking up the family if the secret is revealed. Although some adults may believe their conduct is blameless, the harm done to the child remains the same whenever sexual abuse is committed. The abuser may convince himself that he has a duty to show the child the facts of life. He may believe he is more loving and caring than outsiders who might spoil or mistreat the child. He may feel so neglected and needy himself that he feels compelled to exploit the only loving relationship he can find. He may enter the child's bedroom at night and take down bed covers to expose the child's body, or to explore it with hands or mouth. Confused and fearful of this strange, recurring behavior, the child usually pretends sleep. Sometimes, the abuser's approach is more direct. The child is courted and seduced into mutual arousal, or forced to masturbate or fellatio the abuser. Vaginal intercourse also occurs even with quite young children, as well as with older children. Sexual abuse is followed by guilt-provoking demands for secrecy and/or threats of terrible harm if the secret is revealed. Regardless of how gentle or forceful, or how trivial or coincidental the first experience may have been, sexual coercion tends to be repeated and escalated over a period of years. Often the child eventually accepts the blame for attempting and provoking the abuser. In most reported cases of sexual abuse, the father, or another man acting as the parent, is the initiator. While girls are the most frequent victims, boys are victims of abuse much more often than previously believed. The embarrassment and shame used to deter girls from reporting such abuse has an even greater effect on boys, since the abuse is most often homosexual. The initial sexual abuse may occur at any age, from infancy through adolescence. However, the largest number of cases involve females under the age of 11 years. The sexual activity is usually repetitive and progressive. There is no escape for the victim until he or she is old enough to realize that sexual abuse is not a common occurrence, and he or she is strong enough to obtain help outside the family. The mother, who normally would be expected to protect the child, may purposely try to stay isolated from a problem of sexual abuse. Sometimes she is distant and uncommunicative, or so disapproving of sexual matters that children are afraid to speak up. Sometimes she is so insecure at the potential loss of her husband or partner, and the fear of scandal is so threatening, that she cannot allow herself to believe or even to suspect that her child is or could be at risk. She may have been victim herself of child abuse and rejection, and may not trust her judgment or her right to challenge the male authority. Some mothers actually know of sexual abuse, but for whatever reason, they look the other way. Sometimes a child who does seek help is accused of making up stories, since many people cannot believe that the apparently well-adjusted person involved could be capable of sexual abuse. When the matter does come to the attention of authorities, the child may give in to pressure from parents or caretakers and deny that any sexual abuse has occurred. Even if public attention is gained, the child may feel guilty about turning in the abuser or breaking up the family and consequently withdraw the complaint. This process leads many to be skeptical of the child's complaint of sexual abuse and leaves him or her feeling helpless and guilty for causing so much trouble. Everything in the secrecy and circumstances surrounding illicit sexual activity combines to make the victim carry the weight of the problem. The sad reality is that the child often remains trapped in secrecy by shame, fear, and the threats of the abuser. Careful evaluation is necessary in a sexual abuse situation to determine whether the child should be removed from the home immediately. The mother may assure the police or Child Protective Services that the offending male will not be allowed to return to the home. However, in view of the emotional and perhaps economic dependence the mother often has on the offending male, she may allow them back into the house. Thus, the child is again in an unprotected environment. Even though sexual abuse is often deceptively nonviolent, it is more powerfully compelling and more often disabling than any strong-arm attack from a stranger. Yet, the prognosis often can be encouraging. There can be a striking recovery when effective intervention and help are provided. Intervention alone does not interrupt the trap of sexual abuse, for the child remains burdened with guilt and helplessness unless the offending person is forced to admit and take responsibility of his or her actions. Detection, reporting, investigation, appropriate prosecution, supervision, and counseling are frequently essential parts of a family treatment process. It is of the utmost importance to let your child know that he or she is not to blame for the assault. Try and get him or her to talk about it gently and without pressure. If they don't wish to talk about it immediately, don't push. Reassure him or her that when he or she is ready, you'll be there to listen. It is important that your child talk out the hurt that he or she is feeling. Feelings bottled in too long reinforce self-blame, which sometimes leads to self-destruction. Help for children. Self-help organizations such as Children United, Parents United, and Parents Anonymous can be very helpful. They provide support and promote self-esteem and emotional well-being during the process of discovery, social intervention, adjudication, resocialization, and rebuilding of the family. Early identification of abused children and clinical intervention is essential to develop healthy individuals and to prevent patterns from crossing generations. For the organization nearest you, please contact Parents United. Sexual abuse should be suspected if the child reports sexual activities with parents, other relatives, friends of the family, or other adults. The child shows an early stage and exaggerated awareness of sex, with either seductive interest or fearful of avoidance of close contacts with others. There is tearing, bruising, or specific inflammation of the mouth, anus, or genitals, or evidence of semen, oral, rectal, vaginal. There is venereal disease of the eyes, mouth, anus, or genitals of a child or adolescent. A girl is pregnant and appears extremely fearful, distressed, or secretive. A child with behavioral problems hints at conflicts at home, but seems quite hesitant or fearful to talk about the problem, or a child is known to be the victim of other forms of abuse. Remember, a victim of incest, intrafamilial, or child sexual abuse may, out of their pain, confusion, or anger, act out in any number of antisocial patterns, some of which may include becoming increasingly passive, attempting suicide, running away from home, becoming involved in drug and/or alcohol abuse, or committing criminal acts. Facts about child sexual abusers. The term child molester usually refers to a male or female, but most often an older heterosexual male, who receives sexual gratification from young girls. A male, adult homosexual, or female who receives sexual gratification from younger boys is commonly referred to as a chicken hawk. The child molesters and chicken hawks usually have a specific age preference. Chicken hawks and child molesters are benevolent keepers of their child victims. Many suspects are, in fact, wealthy and financially secure men or women who can afford to provide elaborate gifts for their victims. For most of their time together, the suspect caters to the child's wants and needs in an exaggerated, caring relationship. In return, the child willingly submits to sexual activity. While this perverse form of attention and affection may be especially appealing to an isolated runaway child, the danger of such sexual exploitation is certainly not limited to runaways. It can and does represent a danger to any child whose parent or caretaker fails to provide necessary attention and affection. Pornographic literature is a device by which a suspect can steer a normal conversation with a juvenile towards a sexual theme. It is used to stimulate both suspect and victim and to assist in breaking down inhibitions. The nature of the literature usually will correspond with the suspect's particular sexual inclination, and the models used are usually of the age the suspect prefers. The child abuser is typically a recidivist, that is, the user tends to repeat abuse. The abuser is also typically an escalator, in that the amount and severity of the abuse tends to increase. Because of these characteristics, early identification, reporting, and intervention are essential and vital. Although many people assume that parents are the only culprits, it is important to remember that children can become victims of abuse by persons in non-parental relationships, such as foster parents, babysitters, daycare workers, etc. Half of all abusers are less than 31 years of age. 10% are over 50 years of age, and the majority of sexual abusers are men. If the abuser is a stranger, the child will most likely be abused only once. But if the abuser is someone the child knows, it will continue. This has been Do Tell Someone: Inner Turmoils Surrounding Sexually Abused Victims, written by Wyvania Houston, narrated by Amanda